right, so today we're beginning a new lesson, lesson 29, and I'm beginning on page 599, and I wanted to point out a few things that are in the family letter. So this week we're going to be learning how to solve problems about length, liquid volume, mass, and weight. And we're going to be doing that within word problems. And the important part of how we're going to evaluate these word problems and how we have to remember how to solve these problems is that we are going to have to convert larger units of measurement to smaller units for measurement of length, liquid volume, mass, and weight. So this is an example problem that we're going to find in our work throughout this lesson. And it says, Robert makes punch for a party. He combines 1 liter of lemonade, a 2-liter bottle of sparkling water, and 750 milliliters of fruit juice. How many milliliters of punch does Robert make for the party? Now, I've already highlighted the measurements that were provided, and we have 1 liter, 2 liter, and 750 milliliters. And the question is asking us, how many milliliters of punch does Robert make for the party? So what we have to do is we have to convert these larger units into milliliters. And one way that you can do that is by creating a chart or a graph such as below, where we have the volume that's given and then its conversion in the smaller unit. So for liters to milliliters, we have to remember it is always liters times 1,000. And that will get you your answer in milliliters. So if we have 1 liter, we have 1,000 milliliters. And if we have 2 liters, we're going to multiply that 2 times 1,000 to get 2,000 milliliters. And then we simply keep our 750, and when you add these up, you get the answer to the question. Now, this is just an example and quickly going over the parent page. Now, let's move on to page 600. Now, on 600, it gives you 3 different equations that you can work out at home with your parents, and I would like to encourage you to involve them in this process. And the answers are actually written below in blue, so in case you're wondering whether or not you got your questions right. Now, at the beginning of the year, I handed out a math reference sheet, and many of you kept this in your yellow folder. Well, we're going to be using this math reference sheet throughout this lesson, and this is important for you to look at because it shows you conversions 1 foot to inches, a yard to feet. And what I went ahead and wrote down is that if we know that 12 inches is in 1 foot and there's 3 feet in a yard, well, I know I can multiply then the number of feet, which is 3, times 12 inches to get how many inches would then be in a yard. So it's 36 inches in a yard and 3 feet in a yard. And one really cool thing, even though we don't need mile measurements for what we're doing this week, I wanted to show you that you can remember a mile by thinking of a telephone or by thinking of a calculator. The measurement for a mile, is you start in the middle, it's 5,280 feet is 1 mile. So you can kind of use this visual to remember. That's just what I always think of when I'm trying to remember the exact measurement for a mile in feet. Remember, it's 5,280. It's all across the middle line here. So this chart is going to be important also because it's going to show us some liquid volume. We've already gone over cups and ounces, but now we're going to be learning in this lesson about liters, milliliters, and then grams, milligrams, and kilograms for mass later on. So I also posted this sheet onto our Google Classroom for you to reference and also to print at home if you don't have a copy. Now I wanted to give you a little bit of history regarding some measurements. And a long, long time ago, 1 inch was believed to be the width of a man's thumb, so measurement from here to here. But it became a formal measurement in the 14th century, which was in the 1300s, when King Henry II in England decided that 3 grains of barley was going to be equivalent to 1 inch when the barley is stretched outside end to end. Now, I don't have any barley currently, but I do have some rice. And just to show you, so barley is a type of grain. And if you put them end to end, similarly to this rice, it would measure an inch in length. So that became a standard unit of measurement. Now, a foot was originally believed to be the average length of a man's foot, and that is why it became called a foot. And a yard, which we're going to use a lot in session 1, a yard became formal in the 12th century when King Henry I of England decided that a yard was actually the measurement from his nose to his thumb if he outstretched his arm to the side. So we have those kings of England to thank for our units of measurement there. Just a little side note. Okay, so moving on, I have this chart here. It's a conversion chart, and we are going to just remember that the formula for figuring out yards to feet is going to be the number of yards times 3, and that will get you the amount of feet, amount in feet or length in feet. So if I have 1 yard, I will do the 1 yard times 3, and that gives me 3 feet. So 1 yard is 3 feet. Now I have 2 yards, the number of yards times 3, and that gives me 6 feet. And here I have 5 yards, and we just simply use our formula, 5 times 3, to get 15 feet. So we're going to be converting from yards to feet in our first session today. Now, some of the most common usage of a yard, at least the most popular one that I know of, is when we measure a football field. So from goal line to goal line, it is 100 yards. And then in the end zone on each side of the football field, it's 10 additional yards. So the whole length of a football field is going to then be 120 yards. Okay, so let's move on now to actually our first lesson and see what we can figure out in this example that's been given to us here, this word problem. Julia buys a spool with 12 yards of wire. The students in her jewelry making class use 4 yards and 2 feet of the wire for one project and 7 feet of the wire for another project. How many feet of wire does Julia have left? So already I know, let me highlight our important things. So we have 12 yards. That's our total that we have. And 4 yards and 2 feet is used, and an additional 7 feet is used. How many feet does Julia have left? So we know the have left is ultimately going to be a subtraction problem at the end. And we're going to have to subtract. And it's asking us in feet. How many feet does she have left? So we know we're going to have to ultimately convert from yards to feet to provide our answer. And the next page is going to show us a little bit more about how we can solve that problem, and then we'll go and solve it on the other side. So explain how we can find how many feet of wire Julia has left. Well, we have to know her total amount in feet, right? We need to know her total in feet, because currently we know that it is 12 yards. And then we have to subtract what is used. And those values were, let me make sure I get these right, 4 yards, 2 feet, and 7 feet. And now this problem is showing us how we can kind of visualize a similar problem. You can use a visual model or equation to solve a multi-step problem that involves converting units of length. Suppose you have the problem below. Martin has 8 yards of twine. He uses 2 yards 1 foot for one project and 4 feet for another project. How many feet of twine does Martin have left? This bar model shows you the information in the problem. Convert the yards to feet and complete the bar model. So what this has is it has the total value up top of 8 yards. And when we multiply 8 times 3, so it's the number of yards times the value 3 to get our feet, we get 24. So we know that we have 24 feet up here. And then, so it says 8 yards is the same as 24 feet. And 2 yards 1 foot is the same as, well, we're going to multiply 2 times 3 to get 6, and then we have to add that extra foot to get 7. So we have 7 feet. So the total is 24 feet, and 2 yards and 1 foot is the same as 7 feet. And we know also that 4 foot is used for another project or problem, another project. So what we've used total is 11 feet. So we can take our total value of feet, the 24, minus the 11, and that will give us 13 feet left. So it says, use the bar model to write an expression to represent the number of feet of twine Martin uses for both projects. Well, he uses 7 plus 4 feet. So he uses 11 feet. Write and solve an equation to find the number of feet of twine Martin has left. Well, Martin has the 24 total minus the 11 to get him 13 feet left. $13 feet left. Okay, so let's get back to our original problem and try to solve this problem the same way that we learned on the opposite side. So we have the 12 yards of wire, and now we have to convert that into feet. And we know that 12 times 3 is going to be 36. So overall, we have 36 feet. And then I'm going to draw the bar model. We're going to have the 4 yards, 2 feet. I'm going to put it up top. And then we have the 7 feet, because we want feet within this right here. And we don't know how many feet we have left to get to 36. So now we need to convert the 4 yards to feet. And we know we do the 4 times 3, which is 12, and then we add the 2 feet, which is 2, and we get 14. So 4 yards and 2 feet is the same as 14, plus the 7 feet, plus we don't know feet, should get us 36. So let's go ahead and now subtract the total minus, and we could either add these two or you could subtract them individually. So I'm going to go ahead and add these two. So I have 14 and 7, which is going to give me 21. So I'm going to take the 21 out of the 36, and I get 15. So the value, or what is left, is 15 feet. And I can always check my answer by adding all these values to see if I equal the 36. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'll go 15 plus my 14, and that is 29, plus my 7, and that gives me 36. So I know now, because I got this answer correct and it equals this, that 15 feet left has to be my correct answer. Okay, so when you're doing your actual homework, which is on page 603, when we're writing out examples right here on this chart, consider units of length. So you can think of inches, meters, yards, feet, and it wants examples. And it wants the examples in words, numbers, and pictures. And you can draw as many ideas as you can. So maybe a ruler might be one. You could do a football field. Just draw a couple different things and then write out some examples for this. And so after this lesson, you're prepared to be able to work on page 603 and 604.